Hey there, I'm Drew Barantini, VP of Product for Scite, and I'm going to walk through one of our newer features called Collections. So over here in the sidebar, you're going to see Assistant, Search, and now Collections with this new label here. So if you open Collections for the first time, you might already see some data there. These are dashboards that we migrated, or probably a better word, extended into Collections. So the same dashboard functionality works as it used to, but we're now expanding the capabilities through these collections. So I have a couple that I've already created before. This is showing in the private tab, so these are unique to me. And if you're on an organization account, you'll also have a shared tab for your collections that are shared with your organization. So if I go back to private here, I can create a new collection. I can create a collection from a search, which I'll talk about shortly. You can also pull in from a reference manager like Zotero or Mendeley. You can set a name, optional description, and then you need a list of DOIs. So either a single or multiple DOIs delimited by a comma or on new lines or through a CSV with those DOIs in there. By default, we enable email alerts for newly detected Smart Citations. So when there's new Smart Citations built off of anything around the papers that are collected inside of that collection, you'll get an email alert. And then you can optionally share this with your organization. So if you're on the shared tab, and I don't have any here today, if I create my first shared collection, it will default to sharing that collection with my organization. So I'm gonna go back to collections here, and let's go and run a search here. I'm gonna say neural correlates consciousness, and I'm going to let this run here, and you can see a pretty large set here. So I'm gonna actually just look at kind of the past, we'll say 30 years of information. We could maybe even make that a little bit smaller. So maybe we say like 2016 to 2026, get a little bit smaller. I just want to look for contrasting citations here. So we get to a smaller set here, and then you could filter down further if you want. I'm going to click on create collection, and we're going to name this one neural correlates of consciousness. It tells you the search term and any filters that are applied. You can save it as a search query if you want to come back to this. And I'm by default going to get enabled for email alerts for any newly detected Smart Citations. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. This is going to create the collection based off of that set of results. And this is going to bundle up all those papers into a single collection. Okay, our collection is created here, so we're going to hit view. And you can see on this new collection page, you now have a dedicated space where you can look at all the papers you've collected in one spot. So we have our total papers here. You can see this little lightning bolt icon is indicating that these are collections from saved searches. So they're automatically going to update. There are some ways through the platform where you can add more to this collection, but you can't really modify it. So these are really showing the papers that are currently collected in there through a card view. You can look at them in a list view if you want. We're pulling through all of the Smart Citation data. You can search or filter down by title if you want to see a subset here. And these are going to show in a paginated list that you can cycle through. At the top, we have our alert that's on. We could turn this off. We could go and click on View Dashboard, which is going to give you a very familiar view of a dashboard, which is what we've always had before. So the same dashboard exists. It's just a view of that individual collection to help you understand sort of some summary data, our site index, some author information, all the articles, and the ability to export that data if you need to take it further. So going back to the collection page, you can also optionally edit the collection. So I can change the name or description, but because this one is a collection built from a saved search, I can't modify that, but I can choose to share it with my organization. And if I want to, I can also delete the collection. And at the top here, we have a prompt. So I can say, show me the key, or we'll say, show me the key question of debate amongst these papers. So we will just ask a question here. When I hit enter, it's going to take us over to the assistant experience. You're going to see the neural correlates of consciousness is a collection that is scoped to this chat. So what's going to happen is assistant is going to reference all of those papers that I have manually searched and selected and curated into a list that I want to talk against. So it's going to ask that question. It's going to finalize an answer based off of the ranking of all the relevant papers based on the question that I asked. And it's going to build a search strategy, and it's going to fact check, and it's going to do all the things that Scite does really well to build that rich context to create a verified response. All right, so we have our response now. It ran through all the fact-checking information, and it built up a list of references here. So you can see all the references embedded as well as in the references sidebar. You will see the add references to collection. So if I wanted to, I could gather all these 13 key references and add them to a collection. So it's going to show each title of the paper as well as the DOI. And then you have your list of collections you can add to. So as an example here, the Neural Correlates of Consciousness is a collection I could add these to if I want to. And then going back over into collections here, we will now see our Neural Correlates of Consciousness is still here. The ability to modify anything as we want to. If you want to view the collection, view it as a dashboard, edit or delete the collection. But ultimately what we're trying to do with collections is create a space where you can collect information and then have more scoped queries. And we want to extend this beyond just papers. We're to start looking at additional file types and other types of data that you can add to a given collection as you're working across your research workflow. And the other one that I mentioned here is that you can create a collection manually. So if I went back to that individual assistant query here, and I saw this and I wanted to go to these references and maybe we want to create a new collection here. So we could say, let's just add these to a new collection. It's just going to generically name it. We can rename that later. You can now see this collection here is created with those 13 references, and I can actually modify these. So I can remove any of these that I don't want anymore. So maybe I could go through and say, okay, this one's older than one I want. So I can remove that paper from the collection. So it'll remove that paper. And now I have 12. So you can continue to modify these. And if you were to go and edit this collection, you could edit the name, the description. You'll see the list of DOIs. If I wanted to remove one of those DOIs, I could just remove it from here and update this as well. So that's a quick look at collections. We're planning on doing a lot more to these, adding more data, giving you more space to track your research as you're working across the platform or the Scite MCP to add data into these collections to improve your research workflows.